Well, good morning to my Australian friends from down under, right? Well, it may not be morning there, but it is morning here in Columbus, Ohio. I actually came into the office here early one morning to put this video together for my friend Phil, which I would like to thank for this invitation to speak to you. And maybe there's something that I can say this morning that will spark a new thought or a new revelation in how you approach your entrepreneurial endeavors or your marketplace ministry. And again, thankful for the opportunity to speak. My name is Anthony Young, married to Tanya Young, been married for 33 years. And I tell everybody it's been the best 15 years of my life, right? No, we've been through a lot together. My wife is awesome, but you always got to solve the problem before the marriage gets good, I believe. Have two kids. My daughter is my CFO, and my son, he's a truck driver for us. And they both obviously work in the company and been in oil works. We started it about 14 years ago, and the hand of God has really blessed it. And the Lord is starting to change my ideologies and my philosophical viewpoints on what I think it means to be an entrepreneur and how that impacts eternity or kingdom, because if your business has no impact on eternity, then really what was the point of it? But before we get into all that, I'm now a grandfather as well. I got a grandson named Crew Atlas. He's about 8 months old now, and that's the best gig I've ever had in my life. But just thankful for the invitation to Phil and all of you who are attending. So I'm probably going to share some things that may challenge some old viewpoints, but if you could, just keep an open mind. And if you're a student of the scriptures, go back to the scriptures and see if what I'm sharing with you bears witness with you. And I've never done an engagement like this from a chair, but I thought, it's been a long week, and I'm probably going to just sit down and do this morning. So with that being said, let's get into the meat of what I want to share, and I want to ask a couple questions. Question one is, what was the Father's model, right? And what I mean by that is, when he wanted to establish a church on the earth, what model did the Father use? And the question number two, what model of the marketplace or marketplace ministry, entrepreneurs, what model have we used in, the current church? And I want to break those two questions down, because if we're not getting results that we want, then we have to look at the methods that we're using, or the philosophical or the doctrinal statements of how we think marketplace ministry is supposed to impact the kingdom or our cities. Because the church has usually spun marketplace groups out of the church. So what I mean by that is, you have a church, local pastor, and he says, we need to do something for our marketplace guys. So the church will start some kind of a business, entrepreneurial group. They call it a lot of different things. But it is pastorally led, and it's an outshoot of an existing church. And my experience with those is they never have impact. Any kind of high achieving business guy, marketplace leader, entrepreneur, civic leader, high level leader in business, politicians that get stuff done, they have no interest in that group. And you know how I know that? Because I've been in those groups. Because you get a bunch of type D's in a room and you want to talk to them about their feelings and things of that nature, it don't ring their bell. These guys want to actually accomplish something and get something done. But traditionally, and that's why I say, what is the model of marketplace ministry that we have traditionally embraced? But with what we've traditionally done, what is the biblical model that God even used? So when the church creates a supporting marketplace group, it's typically pastorally cared for, but not apostolically led. which leads to, like I already stated, discontentment for entrepreneurs. And we're saying, why are we here and what are we doing? Because usually an entrepreneurial leader or a marketplace business guy wants to know, what are we building? What are we doing? What is the impact that I had for this time that I exchanged? And it can't just be, because anything that is pastorally led cares more about people's feelings and how they feel in any certain environment, and the comfort of the people, if we're not careful, can be exalted against the mandate of God. Things that are apostolically led take first into consideration. You know, we're talking about, what is this, the Proton Conference, the Proton being, you know, first things. First, we must be apostolically led, and being apostolically led, ask, what is the mandate of heaven for my assignment on earth, and what am I supposed to do? And when you invert the model and you try to have a pastorally led marketplace group that tries to be a subsidiary of the local church, you get disconnected marketplace guys, provision guys, political guys, that they don't feel any call or purpose to why we've created these groups that are spun out of a church. And then we wonder, you know, well, why can't we get these guys involved? I think it's because we haven't clearly defined what they're actually supposed to do. So can I tell you, I'm going to make another bold statement here. The wealth of your city is waiting for apostolic maturity. I don't know how many of you guys have ever taken a business plan to a bank, and they'll x-ray the business plan. And if the business plan looks sustainable, then they'll fund it. Or when you go to investors, or even your own money for that matter, if you got any kind of economic literacy, you will examine what you're doing with your own money. So if you pitch a business plan that is no good, do you usually get funded? And obviously the answer is no. So when we are in kingdom activity and we're not being funded by heaven, could it be that the model that we're pitching or presenting is broken and God can't fund something that he didn't author? Because ultimately he's the author of what we are supposed to be doing, right? You need to understand the pattern of heaven and then what we're supposed to do on earth, right? So wealth is waiting for apostolic maturity, and it has to be apostolically led. Usually money doesn't come to organizations that only are pastorally cared for. And again, this is a paradigm shift, right? I've heard a ton of people talk about the wealth of the wicked is being laid up for the just, but let me give you another, what I think, how to interpret that verse. Wealth is being managed by the wicked until the righteous understand how to manage the wealth and what heaven wants done with it. So all wealth is under management somewhere. Somebody is responsible for that wealth. So I think the wicked are managing it until we understand the apostolic call of what heaven wants to do in our cities, right? So it's under management somewhere. I think the money in our cities is confused and don't know what to do until an apostolic leader shows up with heaven's mandate for the city. You have to understand the mandate of heaven for your city before heaven's gold shows up. So I think we have to raise up a new discipleship model, a new model for our cities, because the traditional viewpoint of what we've done obviously isn't working. Because where are the results of city transformation, of leading, influencing culture? Because I believe that's what we're called to do. So back to my first question. What was the model that God the Father used when he wanted to put a church on the earth? So he sent Jesus into the earth. This is the model. He said, I want to start my church in the world, and this is the model I'm going to use. He sent Jesus into the church. So when Jesus got to the point to where he started recruiting disciples to create the church, who did he recruit? He recruited Matthew, the tax collector, Peter, the fisherman, Luke, the doctor. He recruited entrepreneurs, business guys, and politicians to birth the church. He didn't go looking for religious leaders to birth the church. He recruited marketplace guys to birth the church. See, and that makes your head go tilt, because could it possibly be, and again, don't shut me off. I want you to think about these concepts, because I know they're probably new to most of you. We have traditionally took a church and spun out a marketplace group. But what God did, he took a marketplace group and spun out a church. See, in any high D leader that wants to get things done, you just got excited. But anybody that is concerned or worried about their position or how this may impact me and my influence, that tells you you're married to an old religious structure that puts more emphasis on titles than production. Because entrepreneur, marketplace leaders, civic leaders, they want to move the needle and get things done when their heart is right. And if kingdom people can raise up disciples and send them into cities to make change with the right heart, this will excite you. So that's how God the Father started his church on the earth. Even the Apostle Paul used the marketplace to plant the church, not the church to implement the marketplace. See, I think we have to make a paradigm shift and maybe not think about as much as entering houses as we do entering cities. And I'm not against house churches. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But when we figure out a strategic city of influence, how do we go in and enter that city with kingdom emphasis and kingdom impact? See, we've talked a lot about how to heal the home, but how do you heal the sicknesses of a city? And this is what entrepreneurial, marketplace, political leaders naturally think about. But because we've not been apostolically led, politicians wield influence, marketplace guys wield money, but we have no idea what for. And when you don't understand the created intent for anything, abuse is inevitable. So politicians get corrupted through their influence. Marketplace leaders let their money turn them into carnal, buying a bunch of stuff that never brings fulfillment to you anyway. But when you understand this paradigm shift, you understand what the resource is for. So let's jump into the meat of this now. So this is a Proton conference talking about first things, right? So Proton, you got a chronological order of Proton. This comes first before anything else can happen. And if you don't get what's first in the correct order, everything else that is built after that is messed up. First we must lay the cornerstone of Christ into the foundation, but if you don't have a proper foundation, anything you build on it will fall apart. And again, I want to say it again, just for repetitiveness, is the model that we're using broken? And if you really look at it honestly, the fruit is how you know if something is working or not. So what has been the fruit of the marketplace ministries that we have been in, and how have they been structured? And if they've had no impact on anything, then obviously we know something is broken or wrong. So I want you to think about, obviously the metron, first things first. You have to have apostolic vision. You have to understand what heaven wants you to do. Then you have to strategically insert that into what I would call a metropolis, or a mother city, or a chief governing city. When the Lord wanted to invade the earth, he chose Israel and the Jewish people, which is the lightning rod of the whole earth. They affect everything, everywhere, to the point to where Netanyahu just spoke this week and most of the UN walked out of the room. Why? Because it's a lightning rod of a proton movement that God used to insert his people and his church into the world, right? So then you have the metron of your influence. Metron is basically the jurisdictional permissions that you have from heaven where your authority works in the earth. You know, like a judge has jurisdiction in a particular governmental boundary. Like here we call them counties. There's a judge that has jurisdiction on a county. There's a judge that has jurisdiction in Ohio. But when you understand your apostolic mandate and your business model's right, and you get funded and you work inside your metron, then you understand the boundaries of the authority that God gave you, which the Apostle Paul talked about pretty clearly. So when you understand the first things, apostolic vision that creates the church, that creates the movement in the cities, you understand the strategic places that God has called you to, the metropolis, then that's where your metron or your influence will work. So then those metropolis become strategic hubs. And again, this is the way, if you're expanding a business, you think like this. What's my market share? What's my space of authority? It's the same thing in the kingdom, because these are kingdom ideas that business guys leverage to make money. And money's not bad. Money and profit are usually evidence of how well you serve your city. So the more effectively you serve, the better your net at the end of your balance sheet should look. You should actually be making money, and that's evidence of how well your city receives your business, right? So you had Corinth that influenced Greece, Ephesus that influenced Asia, Philippi that influenced Macedonia, Rome that influenced the whole empire. So these are the cities that Paul picked to have his influence grow in his ministry, right? The metron, the God-given spear, targeting metropolis, leveraging the influence of entrepreneurs like Lydia, Priscilla, and Aquila, and even the business guilds or the unions in the city. Paul dealt with the unions in his city and even disrupted them, right? Remember when all the union workers were mad because their idol business was being destroyed because kingdom expansion? Kingdom expansion, I don't believe, is effective until it touches the economy of a city. That's just my opinion. So you got to have a fusion or a coming together of marketplace leaders, political favor in strategic cities that turned Christianity into a movement that spread across an empire. And again, this is strategic, thought out business plans that heaven will fund. The money will show up when you start thinking this way, I promise you. So you can look at the Philippian, and I know I'm saying a lot. You're probably going to have to listen to this again and go back to your Bible. And you can see what I'm telling you is true or not. The Philippian model was an apostolic vision. Remember the Macedonian call that Paul had? He had a Macedonian call to go to Philippi, right? When he got into Philippi, he found Lydia, right? Lydia, a businesswoman, a seller of purple. She was basically the Louis Vuitton dealer in the area. She sold nice, fancy stuff to all the people of money in the city. And after the Macedonian call, when Paul made it to Philippi, through God's sovereignty, the very first convert in all of Europe was a businesswoman. She was a woman that was in business. So is our model broken? If we were going to go into a new city and God told us to go there and plant a work, what would our old business model, who would they tell us to go recruit? Would it be a female businesswoman? And this is how I'm telling you, this will wreck. It's wrecked me and everything I ever thought of how ministry should work and how it should even move forward. So he recruited a woman that owned a business, the first convert in all of Europe. And that was the Proton moment, right? So why? Because it's the model, it's the biblical model that he used when he wanted to start his church in the earth through the 12. Paul adopted this model, and everywhere Paul went, he connected business, politics, and a church spun out of it. Changes everything. Into a strategic city. See, because Philippi was a Roman colony, a leading city of Macedonia. And it functioned as that metropolis, that strategic stronghold that impacted everything around it. And the vision of God told Paul to go there. And it's critical that you understand, you can't just make this stuff up and go do it. You have to get close enough to heaven that you hear what it's telling you to do, and then you move forward and do it. Lydia's house was the first home church in all of Europe. She had enough money and had a big enough house to where she could house the whole of however big that church was, and probably buy their supper. She used her wealth and her business credibility to open that city up to kingdom expansion. And then her whole household was baptized, right? You know who the second convert was in the Philippian church plant? Remember, we're still talking about these two questions. What's the model, and is the model we're using broken? First convert, woman, business leader. Second convert was the Roman jailer. So you had business and a political leader led by apostolic vision, right? You have the Proton of Apostolic Foundation. You have the economics of a connected businesswoman named Lydia. And then you have the political influence of the Roman jailer. That Roman jailer, that was an assignment, that was a reward for his service in Rome. And he was given that position as a reward of his service. So he was a connected civil leader. See, in the expansion of a city, have we understood like the biblical patterns that we see in the New Testament of how we do church plants? And are the churches that we're planting having any impact on the politics or the economies of the city? Right? So let's break this down just a little bit. When Paul came to Philippi, he found some Jewish leaders meeting on a riverbank. And that's where he converted Lydia, right? The Philippian church plant model, apostolic vision, the proton moment, called him into a metropolis, a strategic city, and introduced him there to the people that had the metron, or the jurisdictional authority in that city, which was Lydia and then the Roman jailer. So this is not a church starting a business group. This is business leaders starting a church, which I think is a biblical pattern that is undeniable. So when Paul showed up there, he found a few Jewish people meeting on a riverbank with no real significance in the city. But as soon as apostolic vision showed up, Lydia brought the church into her home and her house was baptized. You immediately see evil resistance. And this is a prophetic indicator of if you know you're having impact on a city. If you don't get any kind of evil resistance, then you're not taking ground. There's something wrong when we say we're doing the work of God and there's no resistance, because the resistance is the prophetic indicator of the impact that you're having. So when Paul was going around, remember, immediately the slave girl started following him around, saying these men are men of the Most High. They have the words of life. And, what they're saying was true, but it was driven by a wrong heart. So Paul got irritated by this slave girl And this slave girl was connected to the economy of the city. So why do you think a demon-possessed girl, I think it says she was under the spirit of divination or soothsaying or whatever it was, but she was under the control of an evil spirit. Why did this evil spirit rise up in that city? It's because Paul came there with apostolic vision, and his first current convert was a lady of great wealth that everybody in the city knew, and it made this evil entity mad. That's how you know you're having impact. So the Apostle Paul got irritated after many days, and he turned and cast the devil out of the slave girl. And you can go back and read this for yourselves, but I assume you understand some of the scriptures. That's why I'm not taking a lot of time to break them down. But usually you're not at a conference like this unless you love the Lord and you want to do something and have an impact. But go back and read it. I encourage you. It said that after he cast the devil out of this slave girl, it said she was connected to the economy of the city through fortune telling and telling them things to do and not do. And it had a great economic impact for them. And when her masters seen that their economic gain was gone through this evil spirit that was starting to be dislodged in a city, then it says, this is what I think is so interesting. It says they drug him to the marketplace, to the authorities, because the marketplace usually controls the authorities in the city because they become economic slaves to evil money. See, you must understand how hell operates and what we are fighting against. So when they seen they were going to lose their profit, because the gospel should disrupt economies, not just convert people, which I think is primary, but it should also disrupt evil economies. Because resistance often comes when the politics that are served by corrupt businesses are disrupted. Has anything we've ever done through our marketplace entrepreneurial groups ever caused such an evil kickback that some of the evil leaders and the evil political leaders in your city actually attack your movement? And when they attack your movement, that's how you know you're moving the needle. So they drug Paul into the marketplace, not to the marketplace, the economies of the city. And then, of course, everything's in turmoil. It's a problem. He gets beat, right? And then threw in jail. But the evil resistance that the entrepreneurial leaders had encountered drove Paul to his next encounter. Usually persecution leads to what's next, not what necessarily has been, but it always leads to what's next. And again, you got to understand that you can't do this and have a victim's mentality. You must understand that the Lord has a sovereign hand over the works that you do when you're engaged with him. That evil only serves to further anything that your hand is put to do. Because, the devil is still a useful fool in the theater of time, and his job now is to serve us for the advancement of kingdom opportunity. That's all he can do. And anything he does backfires on him. Because he can only choose evil. He's not fighting with God. That ain't even a battle. The only thing, you know why Satan wasn't thrown into the lake of fire when he rebelled in heaven immediately and judged? Why was he cast to the earth and not into eternal confinement immediately? See, and you have to understand this to take cities. It's because Satan wasn't done serving the purposes of the Lord. I want you to think about that. You're not a victim when you advance on your city. Satan, any resistance that he pushes your way is only the leverage and the springboard for what is next, because the Lord didn't immediately banish Satan into confinement because he still needed him to participate in the crucifixion of our Lord, which led to our salvation. We're not victims, we're victors, we're overcomers. Amen? So, the gospel was gaining legitimacy, which was evident by the evil that responded to it. And again, I'm still talking about, is our models of marketplace ministry broken? Are we spinning off marketplace groups out of churches? Or are we collecting marketplace leaders under apostolic gifting to expand the church in a city? See, Philippi became a sending church, a financial partner. It became a metron from the single convert of Lydia. The apostolic vision must always come first. The apostolic vision will usually guide you to your metropolis. My metropolis is Columbus, Ohio. It's the city, it's the state capital of Ohio. An apostolic vision targets cities of influence, knowing the impact will ripple outward. True apostolic vision releases provision. I want you to think about this thought too. Lydia was hidden in a city until apostolic leadership showed up. How many business leaders are hidden in the cities that you function in, and they're waiting on an apostolic vision that maybe you have? Is that you? The marketplace leaders that you can use are not just marketplace leaders that understand profit and loss, economies, marketing, accounting. The marketplace leaders that grasp this concept are also those ones that understand the scriptures and have a real relationship with the Lord. They're looking for more than just what the business can temporarily bring to them in this world. But these business leaders are looking of how can my business have an impact on eternity? So what are you going to do with this information? I want you to go back through, and you can see these examples all through Paul's apostolic work. He worked with Aquila and Priscilla in the church plant of Ephesians. He actually went there. Aquila and Priscilla were with him. He left for a year. Aquila and Priscilla stayed there. He came back. And when he came back, Aquila and Priscilla had made so many inroads into Ephesus that the political leaders in Ephesus actually protected Paul when they had to dispute in the city. Actually, the city leaders kept him from getting beaten in that city because they had influenced the political leadership of that city to such a great degree. It's all through the New Testament. He had so much influence of the church of Philippi. At the end of the book of Philippians, when he's writing to the church, he says, greet all of those that are in the Lord, but especially those of Caesar's household. That's how deep they got into the city. So I want you to rethink what we've been doing, how we've been doing it, and what is the fruit of how we've been doing it. Because if there's no fruit and we're always broke, then something's wrong with the model. And I think the model is starting to be inverted. And I think great business guys have been sitting, waiting, listening to this message. And you know what I come to the realization of? I've always been looking for somebody to rise up and do this. But I come to the realization a few months ago, maybe I'm the guy that I've been waiting on. Sometimes you have to become what you've never had to do what you've always dreamed of doing. Amen? So thank you guys so much. I have a ton more to say about this. I'll be talking about this more at the ICAL conference in Dallas, Texas in November. If you can get there, make sure you register and come. And Phil, thank you so much. I hope this has blessed you. Also, if I just come out with the book, I think you guys can get it in the land down under. It's available on Amazon. It's called Necessary Pain by Anthony J. Young. All right? God bless you all. I hope this has blessed you. And I hope you guys have a great morning or afternoon or whenever it is you're listening to this. God bless.